Alrighty, and welcome
Sound
to the
resumed.
Gigantic Community Council for April 20th, 2015. Hosts this week are myself, Patrick, Kyle, and Perry. How are you guys doing? Kyle, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How about you, Pat?
Oh, can't complain. I told you not to call me Pat. It's my dad's
I'm
name.
sorry.
Gosh.
I'm sorry. I'm
Call-
sorry, bae.
There we go.
User
That
disconnected
works.
from your
That works.
channel.
Perry, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Ready for the Bastallion to join.
Yeah, Team Bastallion.
Hashtag Team Exapo.
See, but the difference is here, Zappo, is I have a battalion, you just have a team.
Hashtag Stream Team. Show 'em Twisty.
And then, of course, we have our lovely community council chat here. We have Kitten Laser, which is one of the best names of all time. We have Salt, and I can never pronounce this one.
Terrelther.
Terrelther. All right, there we go. I'm gonna probably mess that up. So you're now Steve.
No, just call me Ted. That works better.
That works. That works. You sound like Ted from the movie, by the way. It's kind of creepy. No?
I get that a lot.
Okay, I'm just making sure. So the topics this week, Perry, what are they?
Yeah, so this week, partially in honor of the triumphant return of Zappo to our show, we will be talking about league structure, tournament structure. How do we like seeing our competitive gaming organization structured? And then toxicity in the community. How do we want to see Gigantic deal with, people that are of, questionable decency?
Questionable decency, yes. Yeah, okay. That's
Questionable decency, also a description of this stream.
you know what, Zappa.
What I get myself into? What I get myself into?
Come on. At least I'm not wearing a onesie on stream. I mean,
You want me to get mine?
no. We're good.
Okay,
We're
we'll
good.
save that for next Monday.
Not until you get him a Motiga onesie.
I already got it.
So
I don't have it.
Start
I
sewing,
have to
man.
order
Start
it.
sewing. You gotta start sewing. But let's jump right in. And I think it's definitely early to talk about this, but it's always good to talk about it regardless. Tournament structure. How do we want things to start? How do we want things to end? And what's the middle point where it's acceptable between casuals and top tier, quote unquote, players in tournaments? Kitten Laser, I'm gonna go with you first. What do you think that the best tournament structure is?
Well, I think starting out, I think the best kind of structure to have in the beginning at least is like a single round, or not a single round, but rather like a single day or maybe a weekend tournaments where they're kind of isolated tournaments where it would just be like the prizing would be just for that, if any prizing at all, and the streams would be for that weekend, and it wouldn't have any sort of like league correlation where like points would transfer over, because I think first, that would be easier for the admins to handle, I think, starting out as they kind of like get their feet wet in terms of the Gigantic community scene. And also it makes kind of like giving like an overview of the tournament easier, and just like management is much, I think, will be much like more fluid for that time. And as people kind of develop to like become more responsible, and we see like who are like the consistent community hosts within the community, I think we can move towards like leagues, but I think at first like single tournaments is probably the way to go.
Okay. Why do you feel that is the best way?
I think it kind of like, it doesn't put too much pressure on people to like develop like a lot of you don't have to, I don't want to say you don't have to have a lot of responsibility, because of course there's a lot of responsibilities coming with the running of a tournament, but I mean, it's not for the players, it's much less stressful for them because it's not a huge commitment. They don't have to commit months or like multiple months or multiple weeks or however long a league would run to play on the same team, especially when like the community is still so young. And I think that it kind of like fosters like the competitive scene just at its core, and then as like time goes on, I think leagues might be the way to go, but I think at first like single little isolated tournaments might be better.
Yeah, I definitely want to agree with that. I think that's not even something I necessarily thought about, but like starting off in the community, like you're looking at a scene where a lot of the teams are going to be kind of trying things. Like it's, starting a team and like running a team is very much a trial and error. Like you have to get along with everyone. You kind of all want to be on the same page. And like there's, you need some ability to kind of have like kind of throwaway tournaments where the results are not as essential, where you can kind of be like, yeah, we're going to test out this new person and see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fair. And I know there's some overlay issues, so it's all good. We're getting there.
I'm like everywhere, man.
Yeah, you know what? I
Poster
completely...
child.
Hey, there you go. I fixed it. All right. So, like, in terms of leagues versus single tournaments, monthly or every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, let's not talk about leagues right now. Let's talk about the single tournaments, because I think that's probably what the best building block is, which I'll agree with Perry and Kitten. Salt, how often do you think that we should have the tournaments go throughout the month?
Well, Baz, you have to have enough to keep everybody happy, but not enough to bore everybody. So I think there's a fine line you walk, but I think having said all of that, it's pretty safe to say that on a new startup with just fresh tournaments happening, no league business, I think you could get away with a nice, weekend tournaments will probably start nicely, I think.
Okay. So that would be 4 tournaments a month then, or are you just saying one tournament on the weekend per month? Like, because I almost feel like 4 tournaments a month is too much, because when I was in the Smite community, they did a whole bunch of amateur tournaments, like just way too many. Like, I was just like, okay, I don't care about half these. So do you think that the overall number of them is important, or do you think that quality should be kind of more put up there in the beginning?
Baz, you had hit the nail on the head there. You got it right, because that's what I was alluding to is if you have overkill and you just flood everyone with too many tournaments, A, there's not going to be that many people doing it, and B, yeah, you're right, you need quality as well. So there's a balancing act there for sure.
Okay, all right. Ted, in terms of the quality of tournaments, what do you want to see starting off as tournaments grow and become more prevalent in Gigantic, once the NDA lifts, once open beta starts, once we have spectator mode, etc., etc.?
Well, I'm almost of the opposite opinion as Salt. I think we need to get as many tournaments in as possible, as early as possible, and there's a few reasons for that. The teams need practice in kind of that tournament environment. The tournament admins need practice running tournaments. Obviously, as you would well know, the shoutcasters need practice doing their thing.
Right.
So if we need to get a lot going early, they don't necessarily need to be all on Twitch. They don't all need to be broadcasted. But we do need to get something going just so we can get the quality level up early. Because, I mean, if you're just doing stuff once a month, that's not enough practice to get really good at really anything.
Okay, so kind of alluding on that, you think that we need as many tournaments as possible, which I would agree with, but what is too many? Ted, that
I think really
yeah.
more than... I think one a week is probably about where you're going to start burning out the same people. Now, if you have enough going where you can have, if we have enough teams going where we could, have multiple tournaments and not everybody plays in every tournament, I think that would be ideal. And somehow you order to make that happen, you'd have to incentivize the casual player showing up to tournaments. Kind of like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dongay, but we did Battle in the Bot Lane.
Right. Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, Garwar and I were team TSG Lore.
Okay.
And we showed up to Battle in the Bot Lane the most out of every single team there, and I think we won a grand total of 2 matches in our 18 showings.
Hey, but you had fun. That's what counts, right?
Yeah, we did.
Okay,
we had a lot of fun, but it incentivized people like me and Garwar to show up to these tournaments.
Right,
who,
right.
We may not be the best, but we'll show up.
All right, so Zappo, in terms of having fun and putting tournaments up on a weekly basis, Dawn Date, wow, speak is hard. Dawn Date did a good job at making tournaments accessible to the casual players? How can Gigantic do that?
I mean, we just need the tools, to be honest. I think that's the biggest thing if we want all this to work like smoothly and it runs easily and everything's kind of sourced in one spot. And I think that starts really good with the guys over at the Reddit, because that's where a lot of everything just gets thrown from Warpath Gaming League, Clashpoint, GG Unleashed. Everyone throws all their stuff there. So that's a good spot basically for everyone to like reach out to everyone. But as far as what me and Fox have tried doing with Warpath Gaming League, we've tried to basically make it easily accessible. So if people sign up, let's say Pat wants to run a tournament Thursday night, Pat can easily set up a tournament Thursday night, and he'll have the brackets and the tools, and the teams can sign up, and everything's basically just all there for the people. So that was our big thing on. We want to make it easily accessible to everyone. So if anyone wants to join and start making tournaments for Gigantic, that we would be a place to go to for people to just get that set up and get it running like quick. And then for competitive players, that'd also be like the first spot people would want to look. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. As long as the tools are there for people and everyone knows where to look for this stuff, it's probably going to grow really fast and really easy and smooth, as long as everything runs smoothly throughout all the tournaments.
Okay. Perry, why don't you elaborate a little bit more on that?
John, sorry, remind me of the question.
In terms of like setting everything up, and Zappo was talking about the tools, and Warpath Gaming League has the tools. So besides the tools, which a portion of the community has already provided, Motiga said that there will be a spec mode. They're working on it. It's it's the Unreal 3 engine. It's a pain in the ass to make. So while we don't have a spectator mode, and say the game comes out of NDA before we have spec mode, how can we make tournaments accessible while enjoyable for the quote-unquote viewer? Because there really won't be a viewership if that happens.
I mean, I think there's definitely an argument to be made for the fact that we don't necessarily need to have a viewership to have tournaments. I mean, especially if we can talk about something where, there's some at least nominal prize. It doesn't have to be like hundreds of dollars or whatever. Motiga's willing to put up like, hey, everyone gets shirts, or everyone gets, in-game currency, or something, just basic. Like, you're going to have teams that are going to show up, and it can be a casual thing where teams can show up and just show up on the weekend, play a couple matches, and do it. And those don't have to be high quality streams. Like, you don't have to have professional shoutcasters and, full, streaming capabilities with spectator mode. Like, spectator mode is like, obviously we want. Like, spectator mode is something that's going to have to be done. But I mean, and this is a conversation I've had with you before as well. It's like, spectator mode is going to be hard. There's a good chance with this game, like, we're, a shoutcasting team for something like this is going to look like 2 people talking about it and like 5 people on top of cameras making sure that anyone can actually tell what the hell's going on at any given point. Because, like, it's a fast-paced game. There's some large maps, and stuff can be happening all over the place. And getting a good angle on it's important. So I think that's we have to accept that, like, some of the early stuff won't necessarily be like, stunning, beautiful quality. Even like early streams that you see from like League, or like some of the really low level, Smite or Dawngate streams that were like, not fancy, but it's like the level to entry to have a good tournament's pretty high. I'm gonna guess.
Right. Okay, so anyone else?
At least a good streamed tournament.
Right.
Yeah. I'd like to throw a couple things out. I mean, I feel like when we're talking about this topic, it's always like, I don't think we're intentionally doing it, but the way it might be coming off is, like, it has to be streamed. I mean, a lot of tournaments can just go on for like fun, like no stream at all. Like, like that's an easy way to just get stuff going. I mean, obviously people are going to want to stream their tournaments and stuff like that, but I feel like the majority of beginning tournaments aren't really going to be streamed. That's just how I think it's going to like start off. It's just going to be like a gradual growth until you actually see streams coming about.
Or just like ghetto stream, where it's just like the streaming will be, like Zappo's playing in this tournament. I'm just gonna go over to Zappo's stream and watch Zappo play in the tournament. That's how I know, how it's going.
Right, exactly. That's what Smite did. Yeah. Anyone else? While we're on the topic of like streaming and that kind of stuff, go ahead and just kind of chime in wherever you guys feel that you guys need to. I know we've been kind of structured so far, but take it away, guys.
All right. Well, I think going off of what Zappo said,
to your channel.
something even if the streams, the tournaments aren't streamed, like it really helps like develop the infrastructure of like a tournament base, that like people like want within the community, and it helps people like kind of learn from their mistakes, and like even if it isn't streamed, people like learn how to run a tournament better, and like people can still get feedback from the players, like even if it's not from the viewers. And I think just like having tournaments in general is just going to help like the community learn like what works and what doesn't work. And I think over time, like I think at the beginning more you should have more tournaments, but I think that people should focus on improving their quality instead of just like throwing together a tournament. I think like something that just isn't well organized, and is just kind of like put together at the last minute, like just for the sake of having a tournament, isn't something that you should be doing. I think you should like take some time to like organize it and make sure everything is like running smoothly before like you just have a tournament.
Okay.
You know, you say that, but then something always goes wrong on tournament day. Always did for me
Yep.
when I ran them.
Well,
Yeah.
It was
tournaments
be it audio
themselves,
issues.
I mean, something always goes wrong. You're never going to have a perfect tournament. Anyone that says otherwise is just not a smart
Oh,
person.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, was it like the Super Bowl had half of the power go out in the stadium, and that's arguably like the most produced event like in
That was awesome.
the world. You know, so I mean, stuff happens. I mean, LCS still has 20-minute pauses because computers break, and the international has been plagued with minor issues. Like you're never going to get past the stuff's breaking problems.
Right.
Yeah, of course. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like people shouldn't like come together the morning, like Saturday morning, like, oh, let's have a tournament, and then
Oh,
just
yeah.
try and like rush to ask people like, hey, would you play in this tournament?
Oh, yeah.
Like that's just it's not worth it.
Well, I mean, in what Zappo said, like, Warpath Gaming has a website dedicated to tournaments. So, I mean, just use the tools that's there for you. Start organizing. Start learning how the website works. Make practice brackets. Form your team and go, okay, let's have a mock tournament. Let's just figure out what everything does. That way, on tournament day, you're not going, okay, what do I click on? I think it's the Y button, but that one looks like an X, and I'm just going to click it. Oh, crap, I deleted the whole bracket. So that's happened in tournaments I've been in
Yeah.
before. I'm just like, oh dear, sweet mother. So kind of when you're thinking about organizing a tournament and thinking of how to like structure it and find the right admins and that kind of stuff, make sure you know how to use the tools that you're using. Make sure how you know how to run XSplit. Make sure you know how to run OBS. Make sure your mic doesn't sound like crap. Make sure all your teams are going to be there on time. Have a set of rules. Make sure your admins are reliable. It's just everything kind of culminates together, and you'll have a good tournament. What is some
And on
stuff?
the-
Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
Oh, I was gonna say on the fact of everybody's not gonna show up. It's just not gonna happen. I know when we did Best Shape of the World every month, we'd have like 20 people sign up and maybe 12 show up.
Right. Well,
So
yeah,
when
that's
you're
normal.
doing casual stuff, half your people's gonna show up. So.
Well, with kind of in part with that, like Here's the Storm started out that way too, and Zappo's doing the mock rain apparently, and it's people will not start showing up regularly until you have them monies. So
True.
as a community, we're going to have to understand that just because we don't have big numbers doesn't mean the game isn't going to do well. I completely understand that people want to see big numbers. I see Pikachu. People, want to see like the biggest thing, like LCS numbers and stuff. And it's like, you're not going to see that. This is a game that has come out, literally out of the woodwork, and it's like, this is an awesome game. Our community's great. And I swear, you guys always try to throw me off every time I'm trying to talk. It's like your thing. 'Cause I'm gonna get distracted. I'm just like, oh, that's cool. I'm gonna watch that, and then I suddenly
I'm
just
doing
go,
it for the stream, not you.
okay, yeah,
Pay
whatever.
attention, gosh.
No, I can't. I have ADHD. It's terrible. Hey, I see. I think I see a Wii over there. Anyway, so I mean, it's really important, I think, as the community to just make sure that we all understand that numbers are not going to be huge. We're going to see maybe 100 views the first few tournaments. We're going to see Gumby pop into the screen every once in a while. Great show, by the way. And it's really important to remember that. In terms of numbers and like viewership, what have you guys found that I'm just going to put my hand over that screen. What have you guys found that has been beneficial to like growing numbers and making your viewership consistent and making sure teams show up? Let's go with Salt on this one.
Yeah, it's all about the coordination and the communication, and not one person can do it alone. You know, you have to have help, and you have to have a stable platform to get the word out, to let people go check it out and plan for it. And, you know, like you all have already touched on, you have to expect that not everybody is going to be there online on time every single time, because it's not pro leagues, it's just, you know, getting started, warm up tournament type stuff. So you have to account for that too. Have alternates, have a standby list, so on and so forth.
Well, something that a lot of leagues do is have an entry fee. Like, I'm not talking about like $100 entry fee, but like $5 something per person. Like,
$1 per person or something.
yeah, something like that. It just helps engage people, literally buy more into the tournament.
Well, right, and you know that also creates just a really good small prize pool, some incentive. It's like, you know, you have $5 entry fee per team, $1 per person. That's affordable. I mean, you don't have to be like $45 entry fee, winner takes all, rah, Sunday. It's just like, don't do that at the start. No one wants
Well,
that.
Well, $1 person's really small, but yeah.
But
I mean, it adds up though. Like if you're
It
talking
does.
about like an 8-team tournament, that's what, like
Mm.
$80? You
Yeah.
know, 40 bucks. $40 is not a bad prize.
yeah,
And I think kind of related to that though, I mean, like you do need something that kind of like locks people in. Because we're talking like I helped run the tournament at PAX East, and like we're talking about people like you literally just have to like walk upstairs. Like you people are still at PAX. Like you can't leave. Like you're probably still there, but it's like people aren't showing up, and that's gonna be a thing that happens. And so, you know, we had, I think, like maybe 6 teams get DQ'd out of the first round of a 16-round tournament. Like that's like a third of the teams.
well, a really good way to make sure teams show up is you collect the prize money before the tournament starts.
Oh yeah.
So
Well,
sign
yeah.
up, collect the money. Teams are guaranteed to show up.
It's an
Yeah.
entry fee, yes.
Well, and if,
Yeah.
if it's online, like sign up thing, like you need that, or else people will just not show up.
Well, right, yeah. I mean, it's really difficult to get people to start tournaments when there's nothing for it. I know that sounds really stupid, but that's just the way it is. You'll have the 3 to 4 teams that always show up. Like in Smite that happened, Guild Wars 2, Dawngate, Strife a little bit. And, you know, when StarCraft 1 going way back, you know, there wasn't a lot of people really doing any of this stuff. It was just for fun. So I think it's important to always kind of remind yourself that we're not going to have big numbers. It's not going to be a big thing right off the bat. We have to grow. League of Legends took, 2 years to become what it is today?
At least.
Yeah.
When Dota first came out, I'm talking on the StarCraft 1 version, the map, it was fun, but it didn't become a thing until Warcraft 3, and it didn't become huge until the Chinese picked it up. So it takes time. It's so important for just to realize that it takes time. And I think that if everyone can kind of remember that, then we'll be better off instead of just rushing it. Because I've seen so many communities just rush into big esports and banners and fireworks and naked dancers and just like all this like crazy stuff, and it's just
Whoa, what esports are you
Naked
watching?
dancers? What?
Yeah.
I'm watching the
DreamHack.
wrong esport.
Yeah,
Did
Yeah,
you
no
not see
kidding,
DreamHack?
right?
yeah,
Did
DreamHack.
you see DreamHack sign
Well,
next there?
I mean, okay, so but related to that though is, you know, one of the major like, hey, we're pushing esports, like we as a company are going to make esports a thing, has been Smite, and like that kind of worked. Like, high-res
the thing
really
with,
wanted
the
money
thing with
behind
Smite
it.
is Smite had the player base because they're in beta for so freaking long that they just had a player base to kind of like wing it and do that.
Yeah.
And even then, I don't think it was as successful because if you do a league, you basically you chop everything. Like no one's gonna watch any tournament because why would I watch a tournament when the
Mhm.
best teams that I want to watch are always gonna be on LCS or always in the Challenger Series? Like it's pointless. That's why I think tournaments overall for Gigantic would be
Amen.
the better thing. Because if you look at CS:GO and Dota 2, tournaments, there's teams that you'll still see that have been like busting ass and crawled all the way up to like where they are today,
Yep.
and that's way more entertaining to watch. There's
Oh, yeah.
way more teams involved with it.
Heck yeah.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
LCS and league systems are great ideas and it's good structure, but overall it will cut down what you see as a competitive community or esports scene in general. So I
Yeah.
think tournaments is just the way to go. Let it grow naturally. Let
Mhm.
the big IEM and all them come in and do whatever they want to do with it. Like, I think that's the best route for Gigantic to
Well,
go.
also, I mean, if we look at StarCraft too, when Blizzard announced WCS, they completely screwed over any other tournament scene that was bigger than WCS at the time, and like their structure was awful because it was poorly organized, and it's like setting up a league is a lot harder, I think, than people realize because it requires so many dedicated people all the time to be available, to be online, to be there, to be just present. And it's, if you're not paying these people, they're eventually not going to care. And I think that kind of swings into our next topic.
Luke wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Actually, the point about leagues is, I think you guys are talking about official leagues because for Counter Strike, like ESEA and CEVO have been around for a while and they do leagues, right? So the problem is not with like leagues itself, but with how you structure them, right?
Right.
So
I would agree with that.
there's
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
open main and IM, like some of the best like players have always started at the bottom, right? It's really actually exciting to see like yourself or like someone like your team not project, grow from like intermediate and go into that level stage.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to structure the leagues differently. In terms of an official league, I would say, I think it would be nice. It would still be nice to have one, but maybe not dominate most of the year. You need to have
Yeah.
a fine balance between like the international and like an LCS.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think that balancing it like the international does is probably the best way to go. But again, that requires a lot of people on payroll, a lot of dedicated volunteers, a lot of good shoutcasters, a lot of teams that aren't gonna hop from team to team to team. And that's also what's gonna happen when the game first comes out, is because holy freaking crap, Smite did that so much. That was just,
Oh my
oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Yeah, that
It
just
was
happened
like-
with League too.
It was like every freaking week. Well, we're gonna have Lassus on this team one week and Lassus on the other team the next week, and that still happens with Smite, but it's really, I don't know. It's one of those things that if you have experience and you've seen it done before, like I want to avoid leagues as much as possible, just because I've seen the way it can kill like not just the game but communities.
Yeah. I think there's a weird thing and like that kind of came around in that like there were so many. I mean, like StarCraft was like doing really well, and then kind of WCS ruined everything, and then like Dota kind of never really took off. Like a lot of games kind of like crashed and burned when they tried to make the transition. But like the weird part is like right now everyone wants to kind of be like LCS, and I think Riot ended up in this weird spot where they like kind of accidentally did the right thing, and like no one really knows whether or not it's a like LCS was actually the right thing to do, or if like Riot just ended up being super lucky and like kind of stumbled into the right thing that works only for them in the specific time they did it. And time will tell whether or not like other groups will be able to do the same thing or not.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
yeah, exactly kind of what you just said, Perry. Like, I think they just kind of definitely, Riot just stumbled into it and was like, oh, well, we should just start trying to do this. And it just happened and worked, because anytime you hear the devs talk about how League became like an esport and like LCS, they don't really have much to say. They're just kind of like, oh, it just kind of like happened like that. And it's, I think that's the thing. Like, if Gigantic ever wanted to do a structured thing like LCS, it's just going to kind of happen.
Right.
And I think Motiga will know when that's kind of going to happen. It's definitely not going to
Or
happen from
not.
the gate, though. It
Or,
might
like,
never happen.
might
Yeah,
never
it
happen.
could stay
dumb luck
Dota and
we try
CS:GO
something and
route,
it
but that
falls.
still works. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather it be dumb luck than structured or planned, just because that's the way it works best. But kind of moving on from that to our next topic, which is we've talked about this a lot, and I think we all can agree that this topic is super important and probably one of the most important when it comes to MOBAs, quote unquote, and a competitive game like Gigantic, which is toxicity in the community, toxicity in the professional scene, toxicity within community leaders, etc., etc. So, in terms of dealing with this kind of stuff, and in terms of really cracking down on, especially in tournaments, Now, you're going to hear a lot of us use examples of different scenes and examples of toxicity in those scenes. Just keep in mind that we're not using that to bash on those games or those scenes. It's just that this is what we've seen, and this is what you don't do. So, just kind of want to put that PSA out there right now before we talk about it.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, first of all, I'd like to say that toxicity is an overused word
Yeah.
and really we should stop using it. It's more abusive behavior because
Okay.
that's what it is, rather than diluting it's what it is, like its meaning.
So more unprofessionalism than anything else.
Well, it's not, I'm not calling anyone unprofessional. It's just like you call it what it is. You don't call hackers because that makes them feel good because they're like hacking to a program, right? You call them cheaters
Okay,
because
that's
they're
fair.
cheating.
That's
You
Yeah,
just
well,
call them
I-
breakers
I-
of Wheaton's law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a differentiation to be made about the difference between what's like unprofessional and what's like toxic or like otherwise like me, because like there are things you could do that are, you know, bad behavior in game that like you could get away with and like are annoying but not like the worst thing. And then there's like things you can't do like if you are like a professional player of the game where like you in some way represent like more of the whole community. Like
Mhm.
there's some things that's like they're annoying, like, you know, like light trolling or something like that. Like where it's not like, or like doing like really off meta. I mean, like it's kind of weird because Gigantic's not necessarily like, hopefully there's not gonna be as much of a set meta, but like, you know, with something like Dota or League, like picking like really off meta weird ass champions is something where it's like you can do it and like it's kind of trolly, but like if you're in a professional team environment, like that might be considered like that's more of a problem.
Okay, so that's actually a really, really good topic because
Well, hold on.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Where are we focusing on like toxic or bad behavior in professional scene right now, or overall as a community? Because I feel like
Both right now, but we're focusing on more of the professional scene.
Wait,
okay.
what? You just contradict yourself, Baz.
What?
Yeah, he said both right now, but right now is the professional scene.
Oh, well,
So,
whatever.
folks, we're talking about the professional scene right now in tournaments. So continue, Baz.
Okay, so you actually bring up a good point, Perry. When you said that what is acceptable in the casual scene might not be acceptable in the professional scene. So in the professional scene, what is acceptable? Because we have games like League of Legends and Smite, which are kind of known for being a little bit more trolly, and I don't want to say unprofessional because I feel that's the wrong word, but more or less just kind of douchebaggery, I guess, would probably be the better word.
Bad behavior, maybe.
That's a
behavior.
word?
It is now. And then we have Dota and StarCraft 2, which are more of the quote-unquote professional, you know, teams goof around with each other all the time, and they're a lot more respectful to each other. So those two halves of the puzzle, how can they relate to Gigantic? Zappo, I want to start with you because you're a huge League of Legends guy because you follow Cloud9. So what are some of the things in League of Legends that you don't want to see come to Gigantic?
Also, we're sorry for your loss.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks. I heard it was pretty crappy, but honestly, I'd like to kind of just see everything get thrown at it. I mean, from my standpoint, as far as like the Cloud9 and TSM rivalry goes, it's really not those guys don't like each other. It's really just the fans that created that rivalry, where the fans pretend that both teams hate each other when those guys are actually like all best friends.
Of course.
But as far as like people like trash talking, like one team saying, "Oh, we're gonna beat that team," like in interviews and stuff like that, like I'm like all for that. Like I think that just builds like the hype behind like the
Mhm.
match. Like it just builds all that controversy, all that adrenaline. Like I'm all for that, but there is a fine line between like people taking it to like the next level and people keeping it strictly inside the game and keeping it inside like the scene. Like kind of like if you relate to like professional sports like football or baseball, like people will trash talk each other about the game they're playing or their upcoming game against each other, but they don't bring it outside of that area. Like it stays inside the game and it stays professional. Like I like seeing that stuff. Like I think I'm all for that stuff as long as
Okay.
it stays inside the right context and professional, because that will kind of amp up the ante between matches and things like that.
Right, Perry.
Yeah, one short example. I mean, this is something I actually ran into totally by accident. So the coach for okay, I forget what team he is, but Prawley, who's one of the coaches for the EULCS teams. Like,
Okay.
I found it the other day, like his original in-game name was Prawley Racist, and it was like, which was it's a funny joke, and like if I had like random queued into a game with him, I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny, but like he like literally like when he first competed, I think like in IGN or MLG or one of the major tournaments, like one of the people like took him aside, was like, dude, no, you can't have that name like and be on stream.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay, like I'm just gonna but like that's one of those things where it's like there are things where it's like people having like stupid names like your butt is like if I just queue up
Or
with
like
somebody and their name is
balls.
like your butt,
Or
I'm like,
half
or
the-
well, I still don't know
half
how
the
balls
C9
gets away with it.
Yeah,
But
like,
it's like
Lemon
C9's
Nation.
team is just straight up balls. Like,
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, oh, that guy's the man. Like, before I even knew who he was, just because his name was Balls. Like,
And then
Well,
how
I
do you
mean,
not take that
Sneaky was
serious?
Sneaky Castro. Sneaky
Yeah.
was Sneaky Castro before.
Yeah, it's
You
like
know
I
what that
don't
is.
like if I queue up with you and your name is Ball, like I don't care like your butt, like I don't care if that's your name, like whatever, like I'm gonna look at it for 20 minutes and then I'm probably never gonna see you again.
Right.
But like if you're a professional member of the team, like there is a certain amount of professionality. Like you don't want like my butt to be playing on your team.
Could you imagine trying to shoutcast that?
and then my
That'd
butt,
be
a
great.
huge black hole, and then it just would not would end. Okay, so in terms of like professionalism, the names are important, and we don't want to see anything that would be overly racist or overly like questionable when it comes to like you said, my butt or Uranus or ICUP funny colors, something stupid and childish like that. It's funny, but to me, there's a level of professionalism that if we want our game to be taken seriously, then we have to adhere. You guys are awful. I need to just not look at anything. we need to, I guess, maybe adhere to a higher standard just to be taken seriously. Because I know that example of unprofessionalism would be when I was in Smite. There was one guy who was arguing with Richard Lewis, who is a very well-known, very hot-headed journalist, esports reporter. He does a fantastic job. He's very good at his job,
User
but
was moved to your channel.
he's kind of a dick. And you guys are terrible. and
Are you talking about me immediately, Baz?
yeah, probably. And so he got into it with a member of one of the Smite teams. I'm not going to name any names. But the member of the Smite team got so upset that he was like, I hope I never see you again. And if I see you and I see your car, I'm going to slash your tires and blah, blah, blah. And that made news so much so that DJ Wheat and It's Me JP and the StarCraft show, I can't remember what it was at the time, State of the Game, they talked about that on their show when they had no idea what Smite was. And that was the only experience that they had of that esports community. And all of them said that they would probably never look at the game or check it out because of what they heard. So,
Well,
go ahead.
that's like threatening criminal action. It's
Well, right, but it's a super big, like over the top example, which happened. But stuff like that can have a huge impact in our scene that we want to develop because it's the internet. Everything will get around. So if someone that plays on a professional gigantic team says the N-word to some casual player because he's upset or he's had a bad day, that's going to get out on the internet, and that could ruin our reputation.
Yeah.
So just be really careful.
But
Go
my
ahead.
thing with that is no publicity is bad publicity.
True, but bad publicity in esports is bad publicity. It's
Well, I
not
mean,
that-
Smite's still
I
doing
think-
okay. Like,
yeah,
no
they're
one's-
still doing okay, but they're not doing as well as they could have.
I mean,
I mean, we have no
I
way
think-
of knowing that.
Yeah, I don't know.
no, I think it's just.
I
the
think it's
game.
hard to say because even back in Worlds last year, I can't remember who on SK Gaming when they were in
Svenskeren.
Worlds. Yeah, Svenskeren changed his name to I don't even know what, but it was like racist towards Koreans, and he got fined and
Jeez.
everything like that. So like he got fined and everything, but like that did not affect the numbers on watching any
Well,
of that
of
at
course.
all.
Yeah,
Maybe
I mean,
the
one
SK
thing
I have
Gaming
to
matches
consider
because no
during
one had
Worlds.
hopes. Yeah, he got banned for like
One-
2 sets during Worlds and had to pay like a $25,000 fine for
The
doing
thing
that.
about
But
this
like,
topic, though, is that in all cultures, in all things, there are things that people can find offensive. So,
right.
100% of the time, you're never going to have a name unless it's something ambiguous like Salt or Tim. That's just not something that's possibly something that people are able to find offense in. It
Right.
might happen. We don't. The easiest thing to do is not highlight when it happens and
Mhm.
let the people in charge kind of handle it. And the more we make it a big deal and the more that we talk about and highlight it, the bigger of a deal and the bigger of a fire it becomes.
I also
Oh,
think
definitely.
that I also think that like if something happens like what happened with the Smite player, and nothing gets done about it, that's like significantly different than if something like that happens and like the admins or whoever's part of in charge of them like takes swift action and like something is done, like something concrete is done about this, and they make sure that something like this doesn't happen in the future. I think that like sheds good light on something bad that happened and shows that like we have a level of professionalism that we can take care of problems like these and like try and deal with problems like these in the future in our community.
Right, right. Which is why I use Dota and StarCraft 2 as more the I guess the top tier kind of where you should be at. Because whenever there's been a problem, the player and the team always almost immediately apologizes and says, I'm a bad person. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. And they usually get banned for that season or that game or whatever. So I don't know. Do you guys think that in terms of professionalism and the way the top players behave, do you think that affects the way the casual players and the rest of the community behaves? And do you think that they mirror what the professionals think is okay and bring it into the rest of the community?
Yes and no. To be
Well, there
honest,
has-
go ahead, Luke.
There has to
Okay.
be some sort of like rule of law. You really can't just like throw chains on one person and expect everyone else not to be held by the same standard. But at the same time, there is a fine line when it comes to intruding on like freedom of speech. and
Of
stuff.
course.
Well-
But go ahead, Barry.
That said, though, I mean, like, freedom of speech is the freedom to say whatever. Like, I mean, in the U.S. at least, freedom of speech in the U.S. is you can say whatever you want to say, but it doesn't free you from consequences. Like,
Right.
Well, yeah.
threatening to do something or like just being like generally a racist asshole. Like, that doesn't protect you from like getting fired from your team and fined money by your organization.
Right. But okay, but I guess my question is more is do you think that the top level players that will be in this game need to be set to a higher standard because what they do is ultimately going to trickle down into the rest of the community? Because I saw this in Guild Wars 2 and in Smite. The actions of the top players went into the rest of the community and kind of washed over everything else.
The easiest thing to say on that is yes, absolutely. Because we have a primary example in sports. Look at NFL, look at hockey, look at baseball, look at Alex Rodriguez, who did drugs and got banned, and there was just so much around that. Anybody who puts themselves in the light, in the spotlight, whether they mean to or because it just happens to them, needs to hold themselves to a bit higher of a standard because to some people, they're role models.
Right.
Yeah, most certainly. I think that all like players in higher spots within the community definitely should be overall hold themselves to a higher standard because they really do set the precedent for what goes on within the community, and they really have whether they like it or not, have a strong influence over a significant amount of members of the community, and that affects how the game is perceived and how players play the game and how people react to certain things and just how the community runs in general.
Yeah, and I don't even necessarily think that it's, like, I mean, obviously, like, we nominally, we want everyone to be good people. We want, people not to be jerks. But, like, I think it's also a matter of there is definitely a if people are seeing that, the famous, big name players and, like, people that are being publicly toxic and awful are getting punished by the community, that has more of a trickle-down effect. Like, yeah, sure, like, we would like all the professional players and all the public players to be good people, but, like, odds are they're not all going to be good people. Odds are not everyone that ever plays Gigantic will be a nice,
Right.
reasonable person. The trick is you want to show it, like, publicly shaming people and be. I think, like, actually what League of Legends has done recently has been really good for them, which is, like, when someone gets banned or someone gets fined, like, they post it on the subreddit, they post it on the forums, and they're like, look, here's the person, here's their chat logs, here's why they got banned, here's how much money they had to pay, here's how long they're banned for, and, like, just post it all up there, and it's like, and everyone's like, oh man, like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yep. Yeah, I encourage Motiga to do that because, I it goes back to like, like public, executions and stuff back in the Middle Ages. Someone stole something or someone murdered someone, well, they would get hanged or, burned at the stake, and that incentivized people to not do that because you don't want to go through that yourself.
I mean,
Don't
it's partially
encourage
because
burning
you
people
don't
at the stake.
know.
Neither do I. That was a very brutal example.
Hey,
But I mean,
Yeah, just a little bit.
Cutting off someone's
It was
hand.
effective.
but
was
like,
a
Hey, I
fact.
cut off your hand.
So-
You can't play gigantic.
So in
Yeah.
terms of that, right, going back to tournament structure for big leagues like that, they can do that because they salary their players. How are you
Right.
gonna like find people and stuff with like a bunch of independent third-party tournaments?
You
ban
won't.
streamers.
Tournament.
Like you can get kicked from the tournament, but I mean, like overall, like unless it got big to where like people could pay fines, which I highly don't ever really see unless there's like a whole contract to the tournament you're joining. I mean, that's just not gonna happen. As
But
much
I mean,
as
there's
it
gonna be
probably
no
happens in
legal-
league and other things.
I think
There's gonna be no legally binding thing for third-party tournaments.
Yeah.
That's the
I,
final-
I
yeah.
almost disagree with that for one very, very simple reason is if we look at esports as a whole, these players don't just show up at a tournament and play. They're sponsored. They have
Yep.
they have companies behind them. They have Logitech and Razer and all these companies. Those companies that sponsor and pay for these players and really help these players kind of elevate to the next level could hold them responsible financially.
Well,
Oh, and they will.
yeah, that's
well,
separate.
I
Yeah.
agree with you on that, but my thing is, it's odds are the stuff we're talking about right now with people saying stupid stuff in chat or to other community members or casuals or something like that isn't going to happen at a tournament. So it's kind of like people aren't going to be heavily watching these people going to like big tournaments like that just to find out what's going on behind the scenes all the time. Like something might get leaked through the community, but it's not going to affect them if the tournament's over. Like they're not going to do anything while they're at the tournament because I've rarely ever heard of anything like that happening.
Well, I
Well-
can tell you I can tell you for our Dawngate tournaments, we had a blacklist. If you were an idiot on stream or you did something like that, your name went on the list and you would never be invited to anything we did ever again.
yeah, and I think that encourages that it encourages like cooperation between like different organizations that are running these tournaments to kind of like work through something like that, like sort of like a blacklist, so to speak, where they would have like a certain like amount of users who were banned for this, that, and the other thing, and like make sure that these people aren't entering the tournaments because they did something wrong.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Gigantic will probably end up doing. And this is something I talked with Luke about before. Is one of the things that I'd like to personally see is that all tournaments that are going to be in like honored by Motiga and like potentially receive prize support or whatever, like and maybe be like featured on Motiga stream. It would be really good to see like all the tournaments kind of band together and be like, here are the basic rules of like being in a tournament. Like we're gonna pay out prizes in this amount of time. Like our players are gonna be non-toxic players. Like we're gonna keep track of something and like have the tournaments band together to be better, to like kind of enforce that standard on the community. Because like like we, as we mentioned earlier, we don't necessarily want Motiga to be running things from day one as far as tournaments. I think what we do want to see is the tournaments themselves and the community kind of self-enforcing that.
Shameless
And it-
plug to my articles. Yeah.
And eventually maybe move to something where Riot has their own kind of like central tournament document that has like common rules for everything, or even Wizards of the Coast, they have their central Magic
Right.
rule set, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, God forbid we ever get a rule set as large as the Magic rule set.
Oh God.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Hang on, let me get my Encyclopedia Britannica for this thing. Just one moment.
Where there's literally
Section
a test
13,
before you're allowed to be a
subsection A.
judge.
Right, really?
yeah.
Oh yeah. The
Well, that's
judging-
actually not bad. It's not a bad thing.
I mean, yeah, no, I have a
If
friend
you
who's an
want.
L2. It's ridiculous.
It's yeah. The guy at my is the highest you can go for judges in Magic. It's,
Wait, he's at L5?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, there's like 7 of those.
yeah. It's he's invited to big tournaments. But anyway, off topic. So okay, in terms of the abusive behavior in the casual scene, other than us simply being positive and professional while we play as a community, and Gumby's beating up Zappo apparently. Bad. See that is abusive behavior, Gumby. That is -1 star. What can Motiga do in terms of encouraging the community to stay positive? Salt, we haven't heard from you in a while.
Motiga can make an effort to have a centralized blacklist, okay? It would work out nicely for, especially when you have these not so in the spotlight incidences where someone talks smack and it's completely rude and out of place to the point where it's offensive and wrong, or maybe cyberbullying or something like that. But no one happens to hear it or see it other than the few people that are in the TeamSpeak or the Mumble server or whatever that could vouch for it, that it happened and this dude's a dirtbag, don't freaking put him on your team type of deal. If you don't have a centralized way to coordinate this kind of stuff, it's just going to travel through word of mouth, which you're really going to not have a whole lot of luck with that. So you got to have some platform like that. You know, let me give you a perfect example, and this isn't casual play. You were on the topic of casual play, but I'll give you the perfect example when it came down to professional play, okay? It was October or November. I'm in the Waverly Hotel in Atlanta for the Smite North American Regional Championships. Some dude in the COG Red or COG Prime camp shouts at the top of his lungs in the Waverly Hotel to some dude in probably Dignitas or something, I forgot now. And he's totally smack talking this dude, putting him down the night before a match. And right after, now if there would have been something in place like what we're talking about now, that everyone could have vouched for, said, yeah, it happened, this dude should have been DQ'd, and we can vouch for it, take him out, whatever. But there was nothing in place, right? So dude got to continue on, should have been DQ'd for unprofessional or unsportsmanlike behavior, whatever you have it. But he wasn't, and he continued on, and it changed the way the entire thing went down because of it. So have something like that in place that'll allow folks to do that, and the community will benefit for it in the long run.
Very good
But
point.
to highlight one thing is that the more that we, and I said this a moment ago, the more that we highlight these negative things, the more they become apparent. So the quieter Motiga is
Right.
about managing this, issue, the better it's going to be for the community.
Well, unfortunately, it's always going to come out just because it's the internet. I mean, you can try.
Sure,
and
it's
make
going to
it-
come out. We
Well,
don't need to perpetuate the news.
It's
Right.
going to come out in the game because it's a competitive game. There's always
Right.
going to be tensions. There's always going to be
Right.
emotions.
Well,
Yeah,
And
I
just
mean-
like when Salt and I were at the bar and some big dude tried to fight us, we went and got the manager and let them. I'm not even joking. This actually happened. We went and let the management know, and they handled it. Like we
Right.
shouldn't be the ones that need to enforce this,
Oh, definitely.
because
Yeah.
Motiga this is their business, and that's their business is maintaining both the community standards and the standards of fair play. And when we have these players, it's going to be on us as community leaders to highlight them directly to Motiga, not to, oh, hey, Salt, did you hear about, Jackal and how big of a D-bag he was playing in that game?
Okay.
Well, and I think some
Yeah.
of this will, it's like some of this definitely will get handled behind the scenes, and like for a certain amount of time, like Motiga will be able to handle it themselves. But at some point, like we are going to get into a situation that, a lot of the larger games in where like there's definitely a feeling, and like whether how much this is reality and how much this other thing is just weirdness. Like League of Legends, it feels like at this point that until someone has like a front page Reddit post that's like, "Hey, I caught this person being like a racist jerk," and then like they get fined like a week later, and there's some amount of and like it would not at all surprise me if Riot just doesn't have the manpower to watch all of the like famous League players
Right.
enough to be able to ban them when they do stupid stuff, and it requires
Oh, they
the
don't.
public to do that.
Well,
Oh,
on the opposite side of negative reinforcement, right? Because you want to have both sides of the coin. You also want to have some positive reinforcement. So do you think there should be like, I don't know, maybe if there is seasons or something like that, or if you're a positive member of the community, that you should have some sort of incentive. Ideally, you wouldn't need that, but it like in terms of macro, in terms of like lots of people, I think it would still help.
And it's a reminder.
And kind of like a league, end of season. If you're not a dick, you get a little something, right?
Right.
I think that like kind of stresses also the fact that if Motiga can implement some sort of like karma system, I I can't really go. I don't really know what the logistics would be, but like any sort of karma system that would help good players and kind of like try and like put pressure on bad players to improve their something like that within their game and possibly out of their game. I think that would be really good for us as a community.
I think they should take the Titanfall method, and if someone cheats, let them continue playing the game, but they can only play with other cheaters.
Yes.
That would
Well,
be what they do that. That's amazing.
Yeah,
for
Titanfall did
cheating
that.
that's fine, but for in terms of like toxic, oh god, what did I say? Abusive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really gonna. I mean, then again, it's not your job to improve people, but there needs to be some sort of like, yeah.
I mean,
it wouldn't really work. It'd still be like a lot of abusive people.
as far as abusive behavior goes between competitive and casual, there's just gonna be a line drawn somewhere where it's too far. Because to be 100% honest, we're not gonna be able to stop every single casual player from harassing other people or just saying stupid stuff all the time. Like that's just so much work. Like as
Right.
soon as this game comes out, there's gonna be that group of people.
Right. Of
Well,
course.
yeah,
But
you can't really, you
the
can
most
never
important,
prevent it.
yeah, you can't. There's nothing you can do about it. But the most important thing is that the community people that like do all the sites and do all that stuff, and as much as the professional scene and all those people can, is just keep it clean and keep it as it's been right now. Like as long as the group of people that have been working hard to keep the community the way it is now moves up and keeps doing that as the game comes out, then the people that want to be a part of that good community will keep doing it, and all the people that want to be trolly and do whatever they want to do, they're just gonna keep doing whatever they want to do no matter what, to be honest.
Right. Right. And with the game being free to play, someone gets banned, they can easily make another account.
Yeah.
IP bans.
I mean, yeah, I've always been like
You can still get around IP.
That's so
Well,
easy to circumvent.
yes,
though.
but you can. But sometimes the trolls don't know how to, and they're like, "Well, I can never play this game again," and you'll never see him again. So
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm kind of
Yeah,
against
not all
IP
trolls
bans
are
I don't know.
because if someone gets banned and they really like the game and they really made another account to play, then that's just more money because odds are they're just gonna buy something anyway.
Right.
So
To be
screw
honest,
it,
though, the
like,
people
keep
who
the money
do
coming.
stuff like that,
Like, I mean, when I get trolled, if someone's calling me I suck or I'm fat, I'm just like, yeah, totally, bro, and no one knows what to say because you just totally go along with it. Like,
I
that's
think-
just how I deal with it.
Yeah, also I think that some sort of like appeal system, kind of what League of Legends I guess has been implementing. I read somewhere that one of the pro players had been banned for being like really toxic, but like he showed improvement like through his chat logs, like through analyzing his chat logs, and so like his ban is going to be lifted in X amount of years or something, or X amount of seasons. I think
They
something like
just
that would be
unbanned a
good.
bunch of people.
Yeah, I think that like if Motiga, like especially some of like the higher ranking players, like prove that they can show improvement, or like improvement in terms of like their toxicity or bad behavior rather, within in and out of the game, just like in a tournament setting, I think that like they should be like appealed, and I'm definitely not one to like just drop the ban hammer, like an IP ban onto someone, because I think that like I don't think that's right.
I think as long as like as what you're saying is like I have a good example like for anyone that's like known like streamers or like anyone in the community, like your name will just be known over time as Gigantic grows, and there's going to be the people that are just going to be up your ass saying stuff to try and piss you off to get you to say what they
Right.
want you to say. And a great example was a lot of my friends are actually really high ranked League of Legends players, and three of them actually go to play against Cloud9's Meteos when he was solo duo queuing with a friend. And they weren't like harassing him, but like saying stupid stuff like, "Oh my God, I love you," and like writing poems for him and like kind of like trash talking him every time they killed him and stuff. And like Meteos just like went along with it. So like there's a fine line of like it's basically just dependent on the person. So like person can either take it and just go along with it, or they're gonna say something that basically makes them flip their lid, and it just happens. I mean, it's gonna happen to anyone really. I mean, if any of you watch Soda Poppin stream, people harass
Oh,
that kid
jeez.
daily, and
That
they're
guy
just
is-
up him in every game
Oh
he
my
plays.
god.
He's made
Like
so
that's
much
just
money
that kid's
off that
life.
stuff.
Yeah, he's made money off it, but like that's just that kid's life. Like if you're a professional player or someone that's just known in the community and people are up you like that, I mean, like it's just gonna be a fine line. Like if you don't freak out, then people aren't really gonna try doing it to you. But Soda Poppin's case, he freaks out, so people are gonna keep doing it to him because they think it's entertaining. Like that's just how that stuff's gonna work out in the end.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, there's nothing you can do about bad people, so we might as well just kind of be like, whatever, just go away. But all right, guys, we have officially ran out of time, gone 3 minutes over. But as always, thank you everyone for being here. Tim, I know that you usually wanted to say the closing final words, so go ahead, I guess. He's not here, of course.
Good job.
And Zappo's gonna hit himself with the shoe. All right, that's great. All right, well, Zappo and Perry, thanks for being the co-host today. Kittens, Luke, Salt, and Ted, and Tim as well. Thanks, guys, for being on the live stream chat. You guys have been awesome. Your eye just twitched. That was creepy. But stay positive, stay professional, guys, and we'll see you guys next time on the Gigantic Community Council. See ya.